Hi, everyone.
Quack, quack, quack. Oh,
No. Is this the movie? I can't forget. There's actually a duck whistle next to Alex.
It's DuckTales, though.
woo.
Also, I don't know if your germs have been on this, so I could get the coronavirus.
I hate to break. Never mind.
Excuse me.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Laughing Place Movie Club. If you didn't join us for Hamilton, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the movie, just share our thoughts, and kind of like it's a book club, but for movies. All available on the Disney bundle, in this case, Disney Plus. So today we've got Kyle Burbank, Executive Editorial Director for laughingplace.com. Our Chief Central Florida Correspondent, Jeremiah Good. And our Chief Reviewer, Alex Rive. Everyone's a chief here because we don't have enough people for direct reports, so you know.
And we're pretty close to Kansas City.
That is, well, you are.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near Kansas City. Are you close to Kansas? Are you closer to Kansas City, Missouri, or closer to Kansas City, Kansas?
Missouri.
Aren't they the same?
They're in different states, but they share a border. Like, there's not like a space and then the other. There's connected and separated by a state line.
So we're going to start talking about the movie first. I see your comment, RB. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I'm going to start with this comment from Jason. The Mighty Ducks were awesome and the first hockey team I ever knew in life. And that is probably true for me. Rewatching the movie a couple days ago, it reminds me that, there's plenty of sports movies for baseball and football, but this was like the first. I mean, unless you count Slapshot, which is like rated R and completely different. This is like the first hockey movie. So, did this expose you guys to hockey?
I actually grew up with hockey. I lived in Jersey, and so I was a fan of the Devils. But I was definitely a fan of this movie, and actually, it stuck with me as I moved to Arizona, and they'd play the Coyotes would play the Anaheim Ducks a lot, and they'd play that clip from Space Jam. It's like, what kind of Mickey Mouse organization calls their team the Ducks? And all sorts of fun things like that.
I grew up in Wisconsin, and hockey was a big sport. Hockey, baseball, and football were kind of the big three for my peer group. So I knew of hockey. We had our own hockey team, the Milwaukee Admirals. And I think I had even been to a hockey game or two before Mighty Ducks came out. But I will say, because of Mighty Ducks, my older brother really wanted to join hockey, and I became goalie around that time. So that was kind of in the wake of the success of the first film.
For me, growing up in Los Angeles, the Kings were always the number one thing. I had probably gone to 2 Kings games in my life before the Mighty Ducks came to the movie theater near you, but definitely the Ducks. And then when Disney created the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim in Los Angeles, or whatever their title finally ended up being, that turned a lot from, the Kings, which were Los Angeles, to, oh, Disney owns a team, we'll root for them.
Fun fact, the reason Disney ended up getting a franchise was because the owner of the Kings felt that there should be a second team in LA to kind of build out the market. And so pretty quickly, next thing you know, Michael Eisner's at an NHL owners meeting, and they have a team.
That actually brings me to something I wanted to talk about in the movie that bumped me for a second. Was you have the North Stars players, and I was like, wait, they're not in Dallas. But of course, this was like right before the North Stars moved to Dallas, and they had actually considered moving to Los Angeles. And the NHL was like, actually, that's already in the works, so you can go anywhere else you want. And they chose, I think this movie came out, 92, and they became the Dallas Stars in 93. So
they RB has this comment that says, I'm a big-time hockey fan. Although I'm an Anaheim Ducks fan, I just watch as many games as possible, no matter who's in the playoffs Stanley Cup final. Well, hockey is going to be coming back, but unfortunately the Anaheim Ducks, which the Mighty Ducks changed their name to after Disney sold the team to the folks that own the arena, will not be there because they didn't do a good job this year. But going back to the movie, why don't we go back to what? Obviously, we saw this movie as kids, and may have seen it again more recently. But what was your initial take on the film, Kyle?
Well, I remember really enjoying it as a kid. I didn't remember a ton about it. I remembered like the basic outline of the movie. Although when I started it yesterday, I wasn't 100% sure that they actually won. But then as the movie went on, I'm like, no, this team is too evil to not lose. Like, you can lose. It's a Disney movie. You can lose to like a respectful rival, but no, they've taken two things too far. There was definitely some scenes watching it that transport me back, like rollerblading in the mall just seems like the most fun thing ever. I wish I could do that today. And then definitely a lot of like not the earlier scenes with him. Like, I didn't remember any of the stuff with him at the firm or the connection to the boss, but I definitely remember that first scene where he drives onto the ice. That's where I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it now.
I remember that scene. I remember there being a DUI, but for some reason when I saw it again, it kind of hit me like, not sure that would happen these days.
I like how he said that there was a loophole of some sort. Like, he was going to get away, even though he's literally drinking and driving.
Alex, your thoughts?
I remember my older brother was a lot more into the first film than I was. I feel like I was maybe a little young for it, to sit and watch a sports film. Because I will say, I have never in my life been a fan of live, like televised sports. I enjoy going to games and kind of the camaraderie of that experience and the stadium food of it all. But I've never been one to sit down and watch any live sporting event regularly. And so for me as a kid, I do remember getting a little antsy in the theater with it. I know my older brother got it on VHS, and he was huge into, like, if there's a sports film from the 80s or 90s, he had it and he was huge into it. But I was much more into the sequels. I think I was the right age then. And D2 and Heavyweights, which is one of my favorite films of the 90s, were made back to back with a lot of overlapping cast, and I think even some crossover with producers. And so because of the Heavyweights connection, I was much more into D2 and D3. And I had both on today in the background just while I was working. I wasn't paying close attention. But it's really funny. The common theme with the sequels is they're the ducks, and then someone wants to make them not the ducks. And then in the end, they're the ducks again. And that's the outline of D2 and D3.
Which one is which? Which one is the Olympics and which one's college?
D2 is the
D3
Olympics.
is college. D2 is the Olympics, where they become Team USA.
The Junior Goodwill Games.
And D3, I will say, has a lot of Me Too era problems with it. Both are streaming right now on HBO Max. They'll be coming to Disney Plus in October. But when you watch D3 through a modern lens, there's a couple moments where you're like, oh, they got away with that? Oh, that was okay?
Jeremiah, your thoughts on the film?
I grew up watching Bad News Bears. Like, that was a Saturday morning movie on KTLA every other week. So when Mighty Ducks finally came out, I kind of went, okay, it's just Bad News Bears on ice. I actually was just rewatching the film.
Actually, Feld was working on that show, Bad News Bears on Ice.
Is it going to have dinosaurs too? So I'm actually just like an hour into the film. I haven't watched it in who knows how long, but it is all coming back to me. Like, it is Bad News Bears on ice. They do everything. Instead of Gordon having a drinking problem like Jack Lemmon had in the Bad News Bears, he has a drinking problem, but he's more of just a jerk as a lawyer.
Wrong grumpy old man.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. One of the things that you said, Kyle, about a Disney movie. Now, Alex, you probably know this answer. Disney didn't have anything to do with it originally. They're just distributing it. Is that what I read?
No, I'm. My
you might have read it, but it's wrong.
Yeah, my understanding is Disney grew this from the ground up. What I do know about this era is Disney and Touchstone, like in terms of the branding, they would sometimes make a film and do multiple versions of scenes to see which way it would go. And Hocus Pocus is a great example of that, like all the talk of virginity and everything. There's another cut somewhere in the vault of Hocus Pocus with more language than you see in the PG cut. Because they didn't know if Hocus Pocus was going to test well for kids, and so they double made it as a version that could play for grown-ups. I'm guessing the same is true for the Mighty Ducks. We're also talking about an era where to get a PG rating, I mean, PG-13 was out by the time the Mighty Ducks was there, but prior to that, I mean, they could get away with so much under PG. 16 Candles is a great example. 16 Candles is PG. Go watch 16 Candles and that would not fly today. That would be PG-13, borderline R maybe. There's a full frontal teenage female in 16 Candles. So just, stuff like that. So I think this was made in an era when the MPAA wasn't as tight on what they would allow in PG.
The film was, looking back, it's super 90s, like super early 90s, like late 80s. Even to like the crazy like Benny Hill scene where like everything's like overcranked and running around. But the film was originally developed with as a much darker film, but then when it landed at Disney, decided to kind of make it more family friendly. I mean, for those who remember, Bad News Bears was not a kids film. But so this, and kind of opened the floodgates of like sports movies. I mean, obviously Disney did The Big Green, but also after this was like Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, stuff that kind of created that genre of kids playing sports, for whatever that was. But to see how it grew from let's be honest, Disney would not make this movie today, at least theatrically. But this movie spawned 2 sequels, including, some of the best synergy you'll ever see, where they play at the Arrowhead Pond and end up wearing the Anaheim Ducks jersey. In fact, fun fact, the director of the movie's office for the shoot was going to become the head coach's office of the Mighty Ducks. They just didn't have the team there yet. And also some fun things like the Mighty Ducks animated series, which aired, I believe, one season on ABC. And
I know that's from its Disney Quest attraction.
Right. And
lasted a lot longer.
And it didn't work that long, but it lasted a lot longer.
When it was on, I don't think I ever watched a full episode of the Mighty Ducks animated series, but I had a couple on today. And it's funny how much they just take the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles formula and put ducks in place of turtles. They even have a like martial arts sensei guru that's basically what's his name? The rat.
Splinter.
Splinter. I kept wanting to say Shredder, and I was like, that's not right.
It is confusing.
Yeah. One shreds, one splints.
Speaking of confusing, there's this comment. Speaking of Shredder.
There was one part in the movie that was really strange to me. I feel like maybe because they were trying to gear it more towards kids, they just really sidelined the whole romantic aspect of the movie. And so like they have that kiss with Bombay and kid's mom.
Charlie's mom.
Yeah. They kiss, and then like 2 seconds later, there's a bright flash, and they're suddenly in the middle of a game. You're just like, what just happened?
Well, I'm at the point where Gordon just asked Charlie about his dad, kind of a lead up, which worked twofold of the bonding between Charlie and Gordon, and then the, hey, I'm going to hit on your mom. So what's up with your dad? But they do kind of just force it, and then it just falls off to the side.
Yeah, well, and she's not even in the second one, right? She comes back for the third.
She's in the third very, very briefly. Like, and also, I mean, Emilio Estevez, I don't know what his reasonings for it were, but in the third one, he's in the film, but barely. He's kind of in the beginning to set up their transition to college. Then he comes back as their lawyer.
It was that he was actually directing another movie at the time, The War at Home. And then I think once they realized, he was going to only be able to kind of do a fly-in, and they realized that that Bombay's arc was kind of done. So then they made Charlie the sort of center of it all, and then gave that he walks through the tunnel at the end and then turns around and gives the team a smile bit at the end of D3. Although I will say, that will not be the end of Emilio Estevez's association with the Mighty Ducks.
What?
I'm gonna the first comment we got was this one. I loved all three movies since my childhood in the 90s. I know this pandemic has delayed many things, but can we expect a D4 movie series in the future? And the answer is yes. Not a movie, but a series coming to Disney Plus that stars, well, I shouldn't say stars, but features Emilio Estevez.
The Mighty Duck Man, I swear to God.
Where he's the bad guy.
Well, I don't know. Is he the bad guy?
Isn't that, in the description it came out.
Guy, because it's supposed to be like this kid is like, the Mighty Ducks are like the all-star team now. But then this kid kind of unceremoniously gets cut, named Evan, and his mom, Lauren Grant, who is played by Lauren Graham, build their own team. We don't really know what Coach Bombay's role in it is, but we do know that Emilio Estevez says, "Once a duck, always a duck. After 25 years, I am delighted to lace up my skates, put on Coach Bombay's jacket, and return to play the iconic character for this new chapter in the Mighty Ducks franchise. Likewise, I am thrilled to return to my old stomping grounds with my friends at Disney and Steve Brill, the original creator of the franchise, to join them on this their exciting new platform, Disney Plus." Now, I don't know, we don't know what the pandemic has done to the production of this, but it seems to be greenlit, coming to Disney Plus. So,
yeah,
right after Lizzie McGuire.
So Jason, are you excited for what's it called? The Mighty Ducks series on Disney Plus? Let us know in the comments.
I mean, with Disney, typically once they announce something and they cast it, it's happening. Lizzie McGuire, I saw you start to mention that, Kyle, and that's kind of an interesting story just because they started actively filming it and then everything fell apart. But I would guess that that's rarely how things go for Disney's projects once they get this far along. And also, I feel like there's a lot of pent-up momentum for it, and they just put the first Mighty Ducks on the service, and they've had it everywhere. Like, it's in the top scroll, it's in their most popular list. So I would think that they have a lot of confidence in Mighty Ducks being a brand that they want to reboot or continue.
Yeah, when I turned on Disney Plus earlier and that was in the top scroll, I was like, wow, they really know what we're talking about. They want to keep us on the good side.
I believe it was actually the #1 show streamed on Disney Plus when it came on July 3rd.
Oh, that sounds a little weird, considering Hamilton.
Well, all the kids love the Ducks. Kids don't love Hamilton.
They do if he's on a $10 bill. But I will say the big green is also on the scroll, so
But
it could be that sports are coming back, so they're trying to push those.
Everyone loves Steve Guttenberg. He's everywhere these days.
Tower of Terror and
Police Academy.
Tower of Terror needs to come to Disney Plus, by the way.
It
Off
does.
topic.
But it doesn't need to be on Disney Plus. It needs to come to it, but it doesn't need to be there. It's a bad movie. I
enjoy that film. I would watch it every Halloween.
Did you guys know that the end of this movie inspired an Emilio's family catchphrase?
No, I did not.
Oh.
I have to say, I didn't realize how much Emilio Estevez looks like Martin Sheen until I watched the movie.
Yeah.
And now that I see Emilio Estevez 25 years later, he looks even more like Martin Sheen. Doesn't look like Charlie Sheen. So
winning again.
Right. So there was the Mighty Ducks, the team, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim became a part of Disney. And then as Disney exited the sports business, they sold it. But for I would say, I guess it was 1 year. They were supposed to do it again. But last year, they kind of, for their 25th anniversary, they held sort of a celebration of their history, the franchise's history, and including a cast reunion of some of the folks. And you can see the full video on our YouTube channel. But it's amazing how long this film has lasted. I mean, to the fact that I can't think of another what I would call single or double Disney film that had the staying power of Mighty Ducks.
Well, and also, I mean, you kind of briefly touched on it, Fanboy, but I mean, Mighty Ducks kind of kickstarted this new sports genre for kids. I would say even you can connect the dots to Space Jam from the Mighty Ducks in terms of, getting audiences ready for a film like that. And Disney family-friendly sports films, they basically haven't stopped doing those ever since the Mighty Ducks. Remember the Titans, The Rookie, Game Plan, Miracle. They keep making sports films that are family friendly. They after I think Big Green, they haven't so much focused on teams of kids, but they've gone out of their way to make sure that all of these films are accessible by a wide range of people. And I think the fact that ESPN is re-airing the Mighty Ducks, they just aired the Mighty Ducks I think last Friday, and all of these other Disney sports films that have come out says a lot. And I think the last one that they did even went back to having kids kind of in the lead roles, which was McFarland USA.
They kind of transitioned from this, I would say, Bad News Bears formula to the real story, inspired by real life version. And then McFarland was kind of like a hybrid where it was inspired by real life, but also featured kids. But it's to me, what's interesting is like Disney has purchased all of those movies because they got The Sandlot and Rookie of the Year with the Fox acquisition. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if you want to see that genre of movie, which is kids playing sports from the 90s, I think ESPN has had a different movie every week because, between Sandlot, the 1800 Sandlot movies, three Mighty Ducks movies, Rookie of the Year, Big Green, and then moving on to things like, Remember the Titans and Glory Road and other sports movies. And I will disagree with you a little bit, Alex, is that I don't know that now they're doing these. I mean, maybe for Disney Plus, you'll see some, but it seems like McFarland USA, $1 Million Arm underperformed. And, now they're just doing these big remakes or, big swing movies. Like I remember just looking at what their slate is now, like Mulan, Cruella, they don't seem to be doing these sort of more intimate movies anymore, which were the home. I mean, now granted, Disney back when we were kids made a lot more movies, but this style, this $10 million kids movie is just not theatrically released anymore. You get DComs and you get those Disney Plus originals, which I still think are trying to figure out what they are. But as much as I love big movies, I kind of miss the movies like the Mighty Ducks.
Well, and I mean, I guess when I said till today, I didn't realize how long it's been since McFarland USA and the $1 Million Arm. But also, I mean, Disney Channel picked up this torch and ran with it too. And they really did a lot of sports, including some unconventional ones, boxcar racing. Told them about that. There's Double Teamed, Miracle in what was the one? The Hanukkah, their one Hanukkah movie. Full Court Miracle,
Yeah, there you go.
which is a basketball film and a Hanukkah film all at the same time. So they did a lot of these too, and they went with a lot of things that were unconventional. And I would even consider Secretariat, as much as it was in the wake of Seabiscuit, a Disney sports film. And one of my favorites is a period film, The Greatest Game Ever Played, the one with Shia LaBeouf. If you haven't seen it, that's on Disney Plus.
We're also forgetting the follow-up film to The Mighty Ducks. The following year, one of the best Disney films ever, Cool Runnings, came out. So would we have Cool Runnings if we didn't have The Mighty Ducks?
Well, I would say yes, because I believe Cool Runnings was filming before Mighty Ducks was released. But definitely same heads of the studio greenlighting both, and both amazing films.
Now I want an egg. It's eggs just kind of go through this whole thing. Ducks lay egg. Cool Runnings that has an egg.
They pass the eggs. Yeah.
Who did Little Giants? Which studio was that?
Little Giants was Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, and that was Rick Moranis. It was like one of the last things I remember seeing Rick Moranis in before he left show business. But yeah, Warner Brothers had Little Giants, and then Space Jam as like their two stabs at kid-friendly sports films.
Speaking of Rick Moranis, and speaking of Disney Plus, isn't he coming back for Shrunk?
Honey, I Shrunk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although that's not Disney Plus; it's theatrical.
Oh, that's right.
He didn't come
he
back.
Is appearing on Prop Culture.
Yeah, he did appear in Prop Culture.
He's not coming back for the Ghostbusters sequel, as far as anybody said, including himself. But he'll come back for Honey, I Shrunk.
They must have pulled up the money truck. Well, although, watching him on Prop Culture, I kind of feel like he really enjoyed the Honey franchise. I mean, maybe because he was the star, he was the guy, as opposed to Ghostbusters, where he, breaking news, he's not an actual Ghostbuster.
In the second one, he is.
Okay. Because I get all my Ghostbuster news from the second movie. So
Cool Runnings is a better movie than Mighty Ducks, by the way.
Yes.
Fun fact, I haven't seen Cool
Sequelize
Runnings.
that. I'm just kidding.
Sequelize that.
Could actually.
Ended. Also, John Candy's not here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now we're all
Speaking of people that aren't here, did we all know that Jake Gyllenhaal was supposed to be Charlie?
I had heard that before.
Well, his parents made him pull out of it. He was originally cast as Charlie, I believe, and then his parents said, "Nope, you can't do it." Where would he be?
Joshua Jackson was just on Hulu's Little Fires Everywhere. Still working.
I remember seeing him in something he did after, maybe it was like an interview for Dawson's Creek, and I remember being like, wow, he's going to be like the one that actually has a career after being a child star. And I mean, he still seems to be going strong. He was on Dawson's Creek, then he was on that Fox show Fringe, and then he was on Little Fires Everywhere. I think he was also on another show called The Affair. But he is and Jason, who's my expert on all things Joshua Jackson, says he's a very nice guy.
Well, and the main kid from Heavyweights is in the first two Mighty Ducks films. I don't remember seeing him in the third, but he is still acting as well. Aaron Schwartz, I think is his name.
Yeah, I actually saw him. We have a late night talk show here in Springfield, and he appeared. I guess it was a couple of years ago now, but we went to the taping.
He dropped the weight and put on a lot of muscle, and does not look how you would expect him to look.
And then Keenan was in 2 and 3, right?
Keenan was in 2 and 3, and Keenan
Heavyweights
was in 2 because the casting director from Heavyweights casted T2, and so they were like, "Oh, you guys need another kid? Keenan, are you busy at Nickelodeon? No, come on over."
And Danny Tamborelli is in this one, which I thought he didn't come till later. He's really young and also doesn't have a huge part in this movie, but
yeah, I can't tell if this. I think this is right before Pete and Pete. Like he
Yeah.
seemed a little bit younger than I remember him when that show started.
Well, any final thoughts on The Mighty Ducks? Quack, quack.
It's a great film. I'm glad that a new audience is able to discover it on Disney Plus. It's obviously there for all the fans who grew up with it to reconnect with. And, you know, come October when D2 and D3 are on Disney Plus, it's going to be like the perfect home for everything Mighty Ducks, since they have the animated series as well, which was never available before this. And I think it's really cool that, you know, there's new projects coming down the pipeline to kind of reinvigorate this brand and get it back out there. And it's the only sports film that I know of that launched a real life sports team that's still going.
Maybe they can. Oh, we didn't. Another sports movie I completely forgot about, Angels in the Outfield.
I was just about to say Angels in the Outfield.
Well,
Did
they
they
didn't
start
spawn
with-
that one though, but they appropriated it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in the original one, it was the Pittsburgh Pirates, but then by the time they filmed it, there was an Angels team, formerly owned by Gene Autry.
So they
And
were
they
gonna have
actually-
pirates in the outfield, and they were gonna like slash people. Like, how is that gonna work?
No,
Johnny Depp was out there. Then they
there were
brought in a
Angels.
redhead.
It wasn't the Angels. Like you can have an Angel and play for like the New Jersey Devils.
And that had a pseudo sequel made for TV.
It had a couple
Angels
Yeah.
in the End Zone.
Angels in the Infield.
Oh, that's right. There were 3. It's a trilogy just like the Mighty Ducks.
And it was filmed actually in. What was weird to me about that movie was, you know, it's supposed to take place at Angel Stadium or Anaheim Stadium, as it was known, or Angel, sorry, the Anaheim Stadium. But then at that point, the Rams were still playing there, so they couldn't film in the off season. So they actually filmed it near me at the Oakland Coliseum where the A's played before they, you know, in between Raiders stints. So I'm watching the movie and I go like, that's not their stadium, that's our stadium, and then I like maybe 10 years later, I looked it up and it's like, yeah, they filmed it there, you know, because they needed a place to show the movie.
You could have been in the audience.
And
You
they
could have been
premiered it.
cheering.
The movie premiere was at the Major League Baseball All-Star game.
I know people who were extras in Rookie of the Year, which part of it filmed in Milwaukee and Chicago at their baseball stadiums. And so they got to go and be in it. And I was really jealous.
It's just so sad that the kid from Angels in the Outfield never went on to do anything else.
Yeah. What was his name? Joseph. Joseph. No one remembers.
Oh yeah, but he's no Joshua Jackson.
Certainly
Hey,
not.
nobody can be Joshua Jackson.
We're gonna start the Joshua Jackson fan club.
It's probably already a thing.
Pacey for
Yeah,
life.
you know, I keep forgetting about Dawson's Creek. Like
Yeah.
I keep thinking like, oh,
I
he's a Mighty
remember-
Ducks guy that became like still had a career, but he Dawson's Creek was pretty.
Wasn't he in the movie? I can't think of it right now.
One sort of horror movie.
He was in one of the Idle Hands.
He was in.
D2
or the what's the movie where death is trying to get you?
Final Destination.
Final Destination. Was he in Final Destination?
I don't believe
I was
so.
thinking it was The Faculty for some reason, but I really don't
You're right.
remember.
He was in The Faculty. That's the one. But I just remember watching Dawson's Creek with my mom and being in middle school, and it wasn't that long after D3. So like, I remember the first episode being like, "Oh, that's the kid from Mighty Ducks."
To be clear, the movie you're probably thinking of was Apt Pupil,
Nope.
Nope, never heard of that.
Urban Legend,
Yeah.
Urban Legend is a good
Oh yeah,
one.
Urban Legend. I remember that one.
or Muppets from Space.
Ooh, Muppets from Space.
When he was still a name enough to be a cameo.
He was in Scream 2 as film class guy 1.
Got
Urban
the big
Legend. Cruel Intentions. That's the one.
That's right.
That's not
I-
a horror movie.
I kept
No,
thinking,
I didn't say it was a horror
No.
movie. He did.
isn't Cruel Intentions is a horror movie, isn't it?
No.
It's a
It's yeah.
naughty movie.
But I'm not thinking of that one. Anyway, what I was going to say was I remember watching Dawson's Creek with my mom and getting to a point where his character arc did something that my mom said we shouldn't watch the show anymore. And that was like season 1. And that's the last time I ever saw Dawson's Creek.
I like that we all stopped to read that comment at the
I
same
wanted
time.
to know what it said.
If
Well,
you're
thanks so
watching,
much, guys.
I wouldn't say that Mighty Ducks is a great movie, by the way. I'll take slightly issue with that, but it is fun, and yeah, it was fun to watch it again.
It only has like a 24% or something on Rotten Tomato. It does not.
Rotten Tomatoes for movies of this era like is not going to be an accurate reflection because they're not truly pulling from all of the news sources. They're just able to grab what's online. And the other thing I found for Rotten Tomatoes, like if you look up Pinocchio, it's going to be pulling like a Parents Magazine article from the 90s reviewing the VHS.
Can we get Leonard Maltin? Can we get his review?
Probably. What was it? What were you were talking about? Oh, well, you know what's interesting about this movie, what Mighty Ducks, is it actually made more in its second weekend than it did in its first weekend.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Coliseum, I feel like this movie should get credit for like the concept of Moneyball more than Billy Bean should. It's all these misfits using their different talents to score goals.
Absolutely. And I just gotta say, I remember being impacted by the character of Hans because I was like, he's almost like a fairy godmother, except and I was like, it's like, who is this like kindly old man that makes skates in the forest? But anyway, our next movie will be on Monday, in a couple days, and it is Solo, a Star Wars story. Mike will be leading that, so that will be Monday, July 13th at 7:30 Pacific time. So join us as we talk about that. So watch it now, and then we'll talk about the movie on Monday. Don't forget on Saturday, also Jeremiah will be at a place called the Magic Kingdom, or someone said earlier, the Disneyland in Florida. And Tony will be at Disney's Animal Kingdom. So we got a lot going on. And
tomorrow night we have the Disney Park Talk.
Yeah, 4:00 Pacific time. And then we'll also have Star Wars headlines, I believe, at 2. So thanks so much for joining us. I see some comments in the chat, so thanks for being here as well. And once again, Monday, 7:30, we'll talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. Bye, everybody.
Quack, 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 quack.
We got to keep going until I hit the end broadcast button.
Quack, 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 quack.
Keep going.
Quack, 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 quack.
Knuckle
We didn't
pop.
talk about the flying V or any